So we just spent an entire month traveling around the Philippines. We got to witness the crystal blue waters of Boracay Island and its golden beaches. And we got to experience the hospitality and culture of Filipinos, and also got to try some Filipino foods. Now, across that entire month, it's safe to say that we learned a lot of things that if we had known this before traveling to the Philippines, it would have made our experience a lot more smoother. But that's good for you guys, because if you are traveling to the Philippines for the first time, then you can learn from us and take this information we're about to share with you and have an absolutely great trip in the Philippines. So number one, what are the best and worst times to visit the Philippines? So we spent most of our time in the month of January. We actually arrived on Christmas Day, which is interesting because Filipinos really do celebrate Christmas. I think it's the third largest Catholic country in the world, so they're Christian. But when we arrived into Manila, there was a little bit of rain actually, but for the most part it was dry. And then as soon as we went to the islands, which was in the month of January, it was pretty much perfect weather.
Incredible.
It was like blue skies, sun, there was no rain. And this is considered a peak season, so expect prices to be higher, and there's probably a higher chance of there being crowding. Between the months of March and May, people still go to the Philippines, but it is extremely hot. And so that's why December to February is like the ideal season. Now from May to November, this is the typhoon season. I would probably not recommend going to the Philippines during this time because there's a lot of flooding, there's a lot of rain, and that can really impact your ability to get around the islands of the Philippines, and getting around can be tricky during this time, but we're going to be talking more on that later. Number two, do you need a visa? So Karolina actually handles all of our visas, so I'm going to hand that over to you.
Yes. So actually, depending on the nationality, you would need to check for yourself, but normally it's 30 days visa free. But make sure that before actually heading to the Philippines, you would fill out the form, which is called e-travel, because we didn't do that. We did it very last minute, but you would
make sure you do that before your flight.
Exactly.
So like when we went to check-in, we actually had to fill it in at check-in, and it's just so much easier to just do it before your flight.
Yes, so we'll put the link in the description for you to make it easier.
And a good source of mine, Ken Abroad, you might have seen his videos around the Philippines. He actually said that you can extend it very easily if you need more than 30 days in the country. Number three, cash is king. So you might be wondering, can I get away with using a card in the Philippines? And the answer is, not really. No. You can use it at malls if you're doing some shopping, or maybe at some higher end restaurants, but we found for the most part, cash is king. You're going to be using cash everywhere for local transport, for getting food. There are a lot of fees that you have to pay when you're traveling around the islands, and so it's really useful to have cash on you. So when you arrive at the international airport in Manila, you can get cash out there. You don't need to worry. You can withdraw 10,000 at a time. I think you can do that twice. Each time you withdraw 10,000, I think it costs 250 pesos. And so we just withdrew the maximum amount, and you don't need to worry about ATMs on the islands. One of the thoughts that we had was like, if we're going to a more kind of smaller, quieter island like Siquijor, would there be ATMs? But there always is going to be an ATM, because they know that if you can't withdraw cash, you can't spend cash. And so, yeah, cash is king. Number four, how much should you budget per day in the Philippines? So Karolina, I call her the Bank of England because she looks after all of our finances. So I'm going to hand this one over to you.
Yes, I'm a spreadsheet person, so I do a little summary each time we finish a trip.
I'm not a spreadsheet guy.
Definitely not. So I would consider ourselves as mid-range travelers. So our budget per day would be ranging from $50 to $100 per day.
We did used to be backpackers not too long ago.
Yeah.
And so we're moving up in the world, it seems, to mid-range.
Yeah. So I put everything into different categories, and the first one is accommodation. So we would usually stay at a place with a nice room, with private bathroom, in a more of a boutique-style hotel, and that would be $50 to $70 per night.
We did stay at some very nice hotels, like more 4-star, 5-star. So in BGC, we spent around $160 per night, and they even upgraded our room, and that was very nice. And we did stay at a very famous hotel, a 5-star hotel in Manila called Accommodation.
Yeah, our favorite.
That was absolutely incredible. I think that was our favorite hotel ever. And that came in around $260 per night, and that was even the budget end.
Yeah. Next one is food. So actually we didn't really eat street food, but we ate at local restaurants or like bistros, occasionally at restaurants. So our price per day would be from $25 to $40.
There was a lot of Western options. So we tend to eat a lot of local food, and so we're eating at more of these kind of bistro style places. But a lot of tourists were eating at Western restaurants because there's so much good options. So it was more of a treat for us.
Yeah, but it was also quite affordable, I would say. And the last point is transport. So we would mostly spend from $10 to $15 per day, but it would be mainly on like taxis or trikes.
So we use the Grab app, so make sure you download that before you travel to the Philippines. But when you get to the islands, sometimes, actually a lot of the times, Grab wasn't working, and so you need to get a trike, and so then you need to negotiate with a trike driver. So a little tip is ask where you're going, and then basically get them to give you a price, and then kind of just like offer 50% of it and then negotiate from there.
Yeah, this is a default. And actually this price doesn't include any of the like flights or like boats in between the islands because it was
much more expensive, the flights and the boats. Number 5, accommodation versus other Southeast Asian countries. Now, if you've traveled to Southeast Asia, you've probably been to Vietnam or Thailand, and you were surprised, maybe even shocked by the level of accommodation that you get and how cheap it is. Now, if you take that mindset and you bring it to the Philippines because you're thinking, well, it's in Southeast Asia, it'll be the same. It definitely isn't. It is going to cost you quite a bit more for the standard of accommodation that you'd get in Vietnam or Thailand. So it's worth mentioning because if you come to the Philippines and you're expecting kind of cheaper prices, that's something you don't want to expect. And usually people, they don't go below their like kind of comfort, their level of accommodation, which means that you are going to pay a little bit more for accommodation. Number 6, how much does it cost to rent a motorbike in the Philippines? So we rented a motorbike on the island of Siquijor. We had it all organized through our hotel, which is a bit more of a premium, and that was 550 pesos per day. Doesn't include fuel, but fuel's very cheap, so there's nothing to really worry about. And because the hotel, so they organize it so that they drop off the motorbike to you and then you can just leave it at the hotel, is more expensive. Now, if you want to make it cheaper, you just have to go outside of the hotel and you can rent a motorbike from 250 to 400 pesos, depending on the motorbike. Number 7 is travel medical insurance. One of the biggest things you'll need to know before traveling is how important it is to have travel medical insurance. You'll never think you'll need it until you do. When we were in Macau, I got serious food poisoning. We're talking the worst kind. You could probably imagine what that looks like. We're not going to get into any of the details. And guess what? We had to take a flight that day to Seoul, South Korea. And I can remember that flight. It was just horrendous and it was definitely not ideal. Luckily, I found a great clinic in Seoul and the doctor got me sorted out. I think it cost around $20 to $30, so not that much. And we usually wouldn't claim it, but because we travel with Safety Wing, they have a $0 deductible, which means we can claim it. And that's something we really love about their travel medical insurance, is that we're not second guessing whether we can claim things. Because they have the $0 deductible, we just go ahead and claim it. And that's why we partnered with Safety Wing. It just makes sense for anyone traveling, and it only takes 5 minutes to purchase, even if your trip has already started. Plus, it's a pay-as-you-go subscription, so you can cancel at any time. If you're planning a trip, then definitely check out Safety Wing. We'll put a link in the description. We'll also put a QR code on screen for you to scan so you can find out more information. And number 8, should you skip Manila? Now, this is quite a surprising question, but when we were traveling around the Philippines, we often met travelers who actually skipped Manila altogether. Now, a lot of the times it's because they didn't have enough time. So they would have maybe 10 days, 2 weeks in the Philippines, and so they really want to explore the islands. That's why you come to the Philippines, to explore the beautiful islands, the beaches. And even when we arrived, the first thing someone said to us was, get out of Manila, go to the beach. And so I think that's down to timing, but also I would say Manila isn't super tourist friendly for most travelers. And you can see poverty on the streets. You can see like kind of slum-like conditions, and you can have often beggars approaching you, and so it can be quite a shock for people coming from maybe Western countries. But that shouldn't be the reason why you don't come to Manila. The reason why you should come is if you've got plenty of time. Let's say you've got 3 weeks to 4 weeks, then you have the luxury of time. Maybe you spend 2 nights in Manila, and you get to learn about the history of the country. You can go to Rizal Park and learn about Jose Rizal, and also go to Intramuros and learn about the kind of Spanish city that was built there and the influence on the Philippines. And so it's very historical, I would say. And you'll also get a sense for like the core of like Filipino culture coming to Manila. And if you are coming, then we would suggest staying either at BGC or Makati. Now, with BGC, it's a bit more isolated. It's more like a bubble. I would say like Makati would be quite a good place to stay because you're kind of centrally located and you'll get to really feel like you're in Manila. So should you skip Manila? We would say no, but if you're tight on time, maybe you want to consider doing that.
Number 9, island hopping isn't always easy. So as you can imagine, with over 7,000 islands, it all adds up. Like it takes time to actually travel in between the islands. And we kind of did expect it, but sometimes, honestly, the travel days were like half of a day.
A lot of travel time.
Yes, and when you arrive to a place, actually, the only thing that you can do is just to check in, go for dinner, and actually the day is gone. So take this into consideration because sometimes people want to see as much as possible, but I would really recommend to travel slow and kind of like...
If you're coming for like, 2-3 weeks, you'll be like, I want to go to all the islands possible. And I just don't think it's really possible because of the travel days. You're going to be taking flights to some of the islands. You're going to be taking ferries between the islands. And even when you're on the islands, you're then going to be taking, trikes to your accommodation. And before you know it, like Karolina says, the day is over.
There's always traffic. So actually, and it's tiring as well. So it isn't always easy.
Number 10, should you visit Boracay Island? Now, this is a bit of a controversial one because we did make a video about whether or not Boracay Island is overrated. And we did get a bit of flack from that video because I think people automatically assumed that we were saying it was overrated, and that was not the case. If you actually watch the video, we were very, very positive about Boracay Island.
We had a great time.
It was paradise. We even said it in the video, and we even said we would come back to Boracay Island like 100%. We're making these plans in the future. That doesn't mean there are no flaws, because Boracay Island is actually the number one. It has the number one beach in the Philippines. And so when you have that title, it's going to draw a lot of attention. It's going to bring in a lot of tourism. And so you have to ask the question, how does that impact your experience? And in our opinion, it didn't really have too much of an impact. Otherwise, we wouldn't say we wouldn't come back.
Yeah, there were times that it was just like crowded and busy on the beach, especially.
Yeah, like sunset times, dinner times, you could just notice that it was very busy. And that wasn't a problem. Like we didn't really have a problem. We weren't expecting there to be like 5. Some people said, are you expecting there to be like 5 people at Boracay Island? That is not what we were expecting. We were just saying that actually during the day, because a lot of Filipinos actually they don't want to be in the sun.
Exposed on sun,
They would stay inside. And so actually the whole entire beach is actually really not crowded at all.
That beach.
But the one thing, I know, it's just so, that was paradise.
Yeah.
But there was one thing that was kind of frustrating, and we got flack from that as well. And that was basically, we complained a bit about the sellers. Now, when you walk along the beach road, a lot of people are going to be approaching you and trying to sell you like activities. And so we had a lot of comments, I think especially from Filipinos, that were justifying it by saying they are just living, they're just trying to earn their lifestyle. And we appreciate that. We understand that. But when you're approached 50 times in a short space of time, we just couldn't help but by the 50th person just be a little bit frustrated. And we were very respectful. We're respectful people. We'll never treat them badly. But we feel like that needs to be improved. And I think you also got an Instagram DM from someone.
Actually, it was a very lovely message that the girl feels actually embarrassed for negative comments, because she actually said that maybe we were approached by more people because we are foreigners, and
maybe they just thought we would more likely get an activity because probably that's the case. And so we love going for our beach walks. If you actually go to the beach, like the actual beach, and you walk there, they're not supposed to approach you there, which sometimes you got to approach, but they're not supposed to approach you there. So you can just walk along there. But sometimes you just want to walk along the beach road and just enjoy the holiday and the reason why you've come there. You've also spent quite a bit of money because Boracay is not exactly cheap. So that was just our approach. But would we go to Boracay Island in the future? 100% yes. Number 11, which islands should you visit? Now, this is a very big question because there are over 7,000 islands in the Philippines and they all have their own vibe. And so it's highly subjective. What we like, you may not like.
Yep.
But the most popular islands are Boracay,
Palawan.
so El Nido and Coron.
Yes. Then
Siargao.
Bohol, Cebu.
And
we actually loved Siquijor, which is not...
It's very underrated,
that
Siquijor.
popular, yeah.
I think it was like probably the least popular one, but that was our favorite. And I would say Boracay was also our favorite.
Yeah.
If you didn't see us going to Cebu to do the canyoneering, it's because we did go to Mobile, but we were sick and so we're in our hotel rooms.
Yeah, if you're into water activities, like this is the place to be.
In the future, we are going to be going to more of the islands because going one time is just not enough to explore the islands. Like we were saying earlier, even if we're there for a month, you're going to really scratch the surface of the Philippines. Number 12, Wi-Fi on the island. So is Wi-Fi reliable? Because you think, on a remote island, is there going to be Wi-Fi? So what we found was that on the bigger islands, Wi-Fi was not a problem. It's when you come to the smaller islands, the more remote islands, actually getting connected to Wi-Fi is quite tricky. We were on Siquijor Island, which is a smaller island, and even in our hotel, we were on the top of the
hill,
the top of the mountain, let's say, and we had a struggle connecting to the Wi-Fi, and that's why in the reception they had Elon Musk's Starlink that was connected to like some solar panels, and that actually worked really well, but you can see that Wi-Fi was a bit of a struggle in some of the islands, and that's why we recommend getting an eSIM. It will just make your life so much easier, and we'll put a link in the description to one of the eSIMs that we recommend. Number 13, are Filipinos friendly?
So actually, as soon as we landed, we were greeted by a lot of people with the smile on their faces. And throughout our trip, like there was a lot of people who are super friendly and wanted to help. And that's kind of what we expected because we've heard that Filipino hospitality is just top.
Filipinos are very warm, very open, and so we actually experienced it very like kind of intensely how nice they are and how welcoming they are when we went to have lechon in Cebu. And so Daniel organized us for it to come and basically see how the lechon was made, and we got to spend time around him and the people. Like it was like a family around there working, and so that was very nice. And so yes, Filipinos are very friendly. Now, one thing to mention is there are individuals, and I'm saying individuals for a reason, that when you're in tourist areas, they may take advantage of you because you're a tourist. And so do expect sometimes when you're in tourist areas that you might come across these individuals. And again, I'm saying individuals, Filipinos as a population are very, very friendly. Number 14, is there a tipping culture in the Philippines and how much should you tip? Now, this was very confusing for us because as travel content creators, we're making YouTube videos. Our first video, which has over 1 million views as of speaking right now, actually we had an experience where we had taken a taxi to our hotel. It was a very budget hotel, and the security guard came to get our suitcases. So we're like, whoa, Filipino hospitality, like we were mentioning in the last point. And so we weren't really expecting the security guard to help us, and it was a very budget place. And we just came off a long flight, so we weren't really thinking straight. And so we didn't tip him. We were just like kind of confused, but we're just like, we don't want to be disrespectful. Like he's being very hospitable. In hindsight, we would have tipped him. And we had a lot of comments saying you need to be tipping. Like there was even a guy who said, anytime someone moves your suitcase or even touches it, you need to tip. And so what we found actually is that there are a lot of Filipinos obviously living in the Philippines, but there are also a lot of Filipinos living in North America. So we're talking America and Canada. And so the tipping culture over there, of course, is to tip very frequently, very regularly.
Yeah, exactly. And people are very used to being prepared to tip.
And so we were then had that view as we're going through the Philippines. So you might have seen us showing ourselves tipping because we thought that was expected. But actually what we found as we uploaded more videos is that actually the Filipinos in the Philippines, there's not a tipping culture like this, like in North American, Americanized tipping culture. And that actually, while tipping is appreciated, is not mandatory. And actually if you tip, they don't expect it and they're actually really appreciative to get a tip. Even if it's a small tip, we're talking 20, 50 pesos, maybe even 100 pesos, they're very appreciative of it. So in which situation should you tip? I would say anyone who touches your suitcase. Like, we felt the need to tip.
And whenever you feel like it, because sometimes people are so nice that you just want to kind of like appreciate that.
Yeah, so when you get that service, it's a bit like in Europe for us.
Yeah.
When someone goes like kind of above and beyond for you, then you should reward them. And I think that's how we view it. But that was the kind of conflict between like the North American Filipinos and Filipinos in the Philippines. So maybe let us know in the comments what you think about this, because maybe we're getting it totally wrong. Number 15, Filipino foods you must try. Now, this is a bit of a controversial one because Filipino foods do get a bit of a bad rep. And I think that's because it's not widely accessible for tourists. It's not like super easy to find really good Filipino foods compared to other Southeast Asian countries. So when tourists go to Vietnam and Thailand, very delicious street food is widely available to everywhere and it's very cheap. And it's not quite the same here in the Philippines. And I think I learned from comments saying that Vietnam and Thailand have had a lot of money pumped into the kind of food culture that's to attract tourists to their country. And it's not been the case for the Philippines. Not yet, anyway.
Yeah.
And so there are Filipino foods that you should definitely try and just do a little bit more of searching for it.
Yeah, we always actually do some research before entering a country because we are big foodies. So as a first timer, definitely you should try chicken inasal, chicken on pork adobo, pancit, which is like noodles, then beef tapa for breakfast, and you need to drink calamansi juice.
Oh yeah, I absolutely love calamansi juice.
And for dessert, actually, I forgot.
Oh yes,
I completely forgot our favorite, and I think it's Filipinos' favorite is
halo halo.
Yeah, exactly.
And so with halo halo, we didn't know, this was us with bad research.
It's a bit of a story.
But halo halo means mix.
Yeah.
And we got halo halo, and we ate it like typical, like basically tourists. We ate it like from layer by layer. And actually you're supposed to let it melt and then mix it all together and eat it, and it tastes way better. And so there are delicious Filipino foods. I think it's definitely worth noting the ones we had just mentioned, and just search for them on Google and be a bit more, be experimental. Like, don't just stick to Western foods. And one other point about chicken inasal, our go-to place, which is widely available, it's like the McDonald's of chicken inasal, is Mang Inasal. Number 16, can you drink the tap water? Now, this is a question you need to be asking yourself in Asia, because most of the time you cannot drink the tap water. Otherwise, you're going to end up like me and get serious food poisoning. And on that point, don't forget to get your travel medical insurance with Safety Ring. There'll be a link in the description, and we'll also pop up a QR code for you to scan. Now, we're often going to eat out at restaurants and at just regular, not really fancy ones, and they would always serve you water. And so I said to Karolina, do not drink the water, because we do not want a Macau situation. If we have food poisoning, we can't make these videos. We can't actually earn our living either. And so I was very adamant on that. Yeah. But then one day I think we were just super thirsty. It was very hot in Manila. And I went to ask we had peri-peri chicken. That's also a very good thing we were eating in Manila. And we went to ask the server, can we drink the water? And they said, yes, it's filtered. So all of the restaurants and places in the Philippines, I think it's a law that you cannot serve tap water. It has to be filtered water. So can you drink tap water? No. Can you drink the water in restaurants and in food places? Yes.
And number 17, is English widely spoken in the Philippines?
It certainly is, Karolina. And this is actually a really great point about traveling the Philippines. Life is so much easier because everyone speaks English. Even in rural areas, people speak basic English, and so there's no miscommunication. Sometimes when you're traveling in other countries around the world, you'll say something and they will completely interpret it in another way, and then usually it's like a food order and they'll bring you something that you don't want. That doesn't happen in the Philippines. There is a really great level of English, and it just makes life easier.
Yeah, it's
and
very convenient, and you can connect with people, have some conversations.
you don't feel isolated as well.
Yeah.
Like, you can travel anywhere, and if you need help, there's always going to be someone there. And it's really surprising because, like I said, in other Southeast Asian countries, that is not the case. Usually when you go to very touristy places, there will be some like basic level of English, but then as soon as you go outside of that, it's like you have to get the translator out. And that is not the case with the Philippines. It is really, really nice to travel around knowing that everyone can communicate with you. Alrighty guys, so that is the 17 things we wish we knew before coming to the Philippines. If you're going to the Philippines for the first time, I really hope this helps you planning your travels and just having smooth travels in general. Now, if you want to ask us any questions, we'll put you can just write them down below in the comments. We also have our links to both of our Instagrams. So if you want to reach out to myself or Karolina, we're always open. If you're going to DM us, we're always open to answering your questions. We actually feel it's like a responsibility for us.
And we like to connect as well.
Absolutely. And we really feel it's like a responsibility for us to respond to your comments and to address any questions you have, because we know that if there was someone there that could answer like a burning question that you just can't find information for, that is so nice when it's answered. And so we're happy to do that. And we really hope you find use from what we've been speaking about today. So if you did like the video, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the
next video.